Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 123. Audio source: WuXiaWorldAudiobook.com. The Nether Water Manor, Black Robes, White Bones. Then, he dismissed the idea. That's not possible. Xie Lian glanced in Hua Cheng's direction. Ashes are the life source of those in the ghost realm. It's their fatal weakness. How can something so important be so easily displayed out in the open? This fact was something Hua Cheng told him himself when they first met. For some reason, he said it so matter-of-factly, yet in his mind he subconsciously remembered the other things Hua Cheng had also said. Hua Cheng was also watching him intently, and Xie Lian lost himself for a moment. He then immediately turned his head away and cleared his throat softly. Then, whose bones could this belong to? Shi Qingshan wondered. The group of them surrounded that haunting skeleton and started examining it. Xie Lian spoke up. First, it's a man. We see that, the group said. Xie Lian continued. Second, this man's hands and feet should be fairly dexterous, especially his fingers. He should have practiced some sort of martial arts, but his skills might not be strong. Majority of exceptional martial artists trained in a pure body, the bone structure shouldn't be like this. Shi Wudu, however, only swept his eyes over the corpse a couple times before turning away. As long as that thing won't stand in our way, it doesn't matter who he is. Lord Earthmaster, where do you think we can cast the distance shortening? However, before he finished his sentence, that skeleton suddenly raised its head and lunged at him without warning. Fortunately, Xie Lian reacted swiftly and chopped it down with his hand, and that skeleton fell to the ground into a heap of broken bones. Shi Qingshan exclaimed. Xie. In the group of 5, Hua Cheng would never give a helping hand to protect anyone else, and Xie Lian, being the only martial god, suddenly appeared extremely important. Although Shi Wudu was attacked, he still remained rather calm, and had only backed one step earlier too. What's with this skeleton? Does it still have lingering souls possessing it? Xie Lian squatted down and turned over the bones, studying the pile, then shook his head. That's weird. What's weird? Shi Wudu asked. Xie Lian rose to his feet. The skeleton clearly doesn't have a single piece of a soul left, otherwise when we came close earlier we would have noticed any odd movements. If that's the case, then how can it still savagely rise and harm so suddenly? Shi Wudu asked. Humming for a moment, Xie Lian answered. I think it's terminal lucidity. Shi Qingshan was puzzled. Terminal lucidity? Doesn't that only happen to the living? I mean, those on the verge of death still counts as the living. The dead is the same. Xie Lian explained. For example, the seventh day one is also a form of terminal lucidity, when the souls of the deceased return to greet family on the seventh day. In fact, it's the same for anything. I think Lord Water Master must have provoked it earlier, which was why it suddenly gathered the last of its strength and made such a move. Because it made sense. Shi Wudu was valuing his words more and more. Then, according to your highness, what was the provocation? It was either something you said or something on you, Xie Lian said. What did I say? Shi Wudu wondered. Ming Yi blew out a breath. As long as that thing won't stand in our way, it doesn't matter who he is. Single quote. Shi Qingshan scratched his head, puzzled. Was there something wrong with that? Could this good brother have a bad temper? Nothing conclusive could come from further discussion, so Xie Lian said. Either way, the souls have dispersed, so let it go. He then picked up the bones and placed them upon the altar anew, clapping his hands in prayer and bowed a few times. Shi Qingshan came over too and randomly bowed a couple times. The 5 of them then wandered about the Nether Water Manor. There wasn't anyone there, so it seemed that legendary Black Water Ghost Sun wasn't home. The framework of the Water Manor was complex. There were many big and small side chambers within. But there was one that was particularly hidden and narrow. Its doors had strange spells drawn upon it, the very leftover trace of having the distance-shortening spells casted. It seemed that on this black water island, there was indeed a place that the distance shortening array could be used, and that place was this tiny side chamber. To set a chamber specifically as a connection point, the amount of spiritual powers required would be much less than if one was to draw a completely new array. Since they didn't have much spiritual powers at their disposal, this was perfect. Ming Yi was the expert, and with just a glance he stated, "This array only allows for one direction." Xie Lian understood, which means that it can only send forth, but one cannot be sent here from elsewhere, correct? Ming Yi nodded. So the spiritual powers need can be further cut down. Isn't that exactly what we need? Shi Qingshan said. We only need to leave. This is great. Let's get out of here. Don't let that Black Water Master discover us. Then, with Ming Yi in one arm, he was about to push open the doors with his other hand when Ming Yi shouted sharply, "Stop! There's a trap." Hearing this, Shi Qingshan stumbled back 3 feet. What trap? Ming Yi was also dragged back for 3 feet along with him and was speechless for a moment. Then he gestured for Shi Qingshan to assist him again and they went back to the door. Ming Yi looked over the spells on that door for a while before stating firmly, "It's a trap. Arrays drawn in this chamber at most can only send one person away at a time." "That's a thing?" Shi Qingshan exclaimed. "Then what happens if 2 people are sent together?" Ming Yi answered coldly. "When those 2 reach their destination, you'll find they will have been crushed into one person." Among those present, only Ming Yi was the expert when it came to this. The rest was one water god, one wind god, and one martial god, none of them particularly familiar in this area. Xie Lian's first reaction was to look at Hua Cheng, and seeing that he was only watching that array with a dark look but didn't voice any objections, it seemed Ming Yi wasn't lying. Xie Lian hummed. If that's really the case, then should ignorant intruders try to use this array to escape, they'd result in an atrocious end. No wonder it's a trap. Just then, there was rumbling in the skies outside. Twisted lightning crawled across the gloomy clouds, flashing white and blue upon the faces inside the Nether Water Manor, making them appear like 5 menacing ghosts. The group all looked at each other and Shi Qingshan said, "Shay, it's another." Shi Wudu's face was dropping and he didn't respond. However, everyone knew that this was his heavenly calamity in pursuit of him again. Pei Ming's casual words faintly echoed in Xie Lian's mind again. "Shui Shishang, you're really unlucky this time. Since we can use the distance shortening array here, then let's hurry and get out of here." Shi Qingshan urged. "If a heavenly lightning is to strike here and destroy the Water Manor, then this would surely cause greater animosity. To dismantle a heavenly official's temple was to destroy their brand. It would build deep hatred. Although it's unclear whether if the Ghost Realm held the same taboo, no one would want to have their house demolished for no reason." "Then Lord Earthmaster, you must go first. You're wounded," Xie Lian said. However, Ming Yi shook his head. "The array will need to be redrawn after every use. None of you know how to draw it, so I have to stay behind to repair the array." "Then Ming Shang, I'll stay with you and go second last," Shi Qingshan said. "What are you saying?" Shi Wudu said. Even if you stay, you'd be of no use. Leave now and go to the EC." However, Shi Qingshan countered, "Everyone's about equally useless right now, so it doesn't matter. This whole thing had nothing to do with Ming Shang, but he had to suffer like this." He sighed. "I feel really bad. We're all being sent to the same location anyway. It won't take long, so what are you afraid of?" Shi Wudu said. If this was before, Shi Wudu had only need to say a few words and Shi Qingshan would listen. Yet things weren't the same now, and Shi Qingshan wasn't listening, asking instead, "If we left first, what about General Pei? Wouldn't he be left behind?" Shi Wudu also noticed that his younger brother wasn't as obedient anymore and his expression grew complicated. A moment later he replied, "It's fine. Pei Shang's stubbornly resilient. He can hang on until we get reinforcements from heaven." Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Although his instincts told him the water master wasn't wrong and didn't mean any harm, but still he suddenly felt pity for Pei Ming. After a pause, he said, "Wait." The group looked to him. Xie Lian said, "Lord Earthmaster, are you sure this chamber can really start up the distance-shortening array? Won't there be any issues? I don't think it's wise to just use it so carelessly. Why not test it first?" Ming Yi's hand really did stop. "How? If we must test it, we'll still need a volunteer." Shi Qingshan raised his hand. "Then I volunteer." Hua Cheng hadn't spoken throughout the whole thing, but now he crossed his arms and said, "Sorry to interrupt. Have you all never thought of a problem? And what esteemed opinion does my lord have?" Ming Yi asked. "How would you know if the volunteer has reached the predetermined destination?" Hua Cheng pointed out. Xie Lian blinked. "That's right. Lord Earthmaster did say this array only goes one direction. Which meant, once sent out, that person would not be able to return and let the others know whether if they've reached the destination safely. Where they were now was also isolated from the outside world. The spirit communication arrays blocked, so it seemed they've come to a dead end. It seemed they've all forgotten that fact just now." Hua Cheng concluded. "So, it's completely meaningless to keep discussing this issue. It's just one word, go or leave. End this swiftly. Scared? Then stay behind." Although he was smiling, Xie Lian could sense that Hua Cheng was slightly restless, as if he wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. This restlessness should have been around ever since they were brought back by Shi Wudu's water dragons, and it was only getting worse. Shi Wudu didn't want to wait anymore either. That heavenly thunder was exploding next to his ears, and if he didn't leave it would strike sooner than later, and no one would have a good time. Thus, he charged into that side chamber and slammed the door. Ming Yi immediately completed the array. When the door was opened once more, faint smoke wafted from the inside, but it was empty within. "Done. Next," Ming Yi said. "Then, Your Highness." Shi Qingshan started, but before he could finish, Ming Yi had already grabbed him and stuffed him inside, closing the door, completing the array. The second time the door opened, Ming Yi looked at the remaining two. Xie Lian spoke up. "San Liang, why don't you go first?" However, Hua Cheng pulled him along and said darkly, "Gurgur, we go together." Xie Lian was taken aback. "But couldn't this array only allow for one at a time?" "I'm not alive, don't worry," Hua Cheng said. Xie Lian still felt rather concerned for some reason, but he couldn't put his fingers on it. Hua Cheng brought him through the door and said to the Ming Yi outside, "Puqi Shrine." Ming Yi nodded silently. That set of doors slowly closed before Xie Lian, and through the closing crack, he glanced at Ming Yi's dark expression, wondering in spite of himself, can Lord Earthmaster really hold on? Hua Cheng closed the door with his own hand, waited for a moment, then reopened it. What appeared before the two was already the interior of Puqi Shrine. It was the middle of the night. Qirong was sleeping sprawled out like he died a violent death, and he hogged all the blankets, his snores roaring to the skies. Kuzi used to have a good sleeping form, but perhaps with his cheap dad's bad influence, now he was also spread out on top of Qirong's stomach like a dead fish. Lang Ying himself was curled neatly in the corner and was covered by a few shirts. Xie Lian lifted the blanket covering Qirong, suppressed the urge to smother his face, and covered the two small children. "So, we're back?" he whispered. Hua Cheng closed the door behind him. It's over." "Not yet, I don't think," Xie Lian said. "We don't know if Lord Windmaster and the others have returned yet." He lightly pushed the door open and only raised his voice once he was outside the shrine, calling the spirit communication array that was temporarily set up from before. "Lord Earthmaster, are you all back?" There was no response. Thinking that Ming Yi might not have acted that quick, Xie Lian entered the spirit communication array of the heavenly court. He wouldn't have known had he not entered, but once he had, he jumped in surprise. It was complete chaos inside. Every heavenly official was yelling, and even Ling Wen was throwing a fit. Don't throw every useless information my way. How much do you think I have to go through every day? Don't you all know to use your brains a little before asking me? Ling Wen, Xie Lian called out hastily. Have Lord Water Master and the others not return? As if she changed into a completely different person, Ling Wen instantly caught hold of him. Your Highness, why is your voice suddenly so loud? Have you returned from the East Sea? Where did Lord Water Master and General Pig go? How come there's been no communication? I came back from the South Sea, Xie Lian said. The South Sea? The South Sea, Blackwater Ghost Lair. Ling Wen was dumbfounded. But how did you all end up over there? We never touched that place. Are Ol Pei and the others there too? It's a long story, Xie Lian said. Lord Water Master was fighting the trial and accidentally entered the Blackwater Ghost Lair. We finally escaped. He and Lord Wind Master returned before I did, so they should have reached the East Sea by now. Did you not see them? No, Ling Wen said. The East Sea had calmed down a long time ago, and those 200-something fishermen have all been rescued, but there's no trace of them on the shores or in the sea. How can that be? Xie Lian exclaimed. Unless what? Ling Wen asked anxiously. Unless what? Your Highness, do you still have something to say? Should we send heavenly officials to the South Sea right now? Xie Lian muttered. It's too late. He shut down the spirit communication array and whipped around. San Lang. Hua Cheng seemed to already expect what he was going to ask and was silent with his hands clenched at his sides, watching him solemnly. Did you and that person reach an agreement a long time ago? Xie Lian asked. Hua Cheng didn't immediately respond, but just as he moved his lips, Xie Lian quickly said, No, don't tell me. You don't have to answer me. If you had long reached an agreement with someone else, I certainly wouldn't want you to become someone who'd go back on their word because of me. It's my fault for asking you so suddenly. I didn't mean to put you in a difficult situation. I'm sorry, Your Highness, Hua Cheng said. Xie Lian shook his head. Don't apologize. I should have figured this out a long time ago. It must be due to some sort of agreement that you couldn't interfere and couldn't tell me the truth directly. It wasn't like Hua Cheng hadn't tried to stop him, but he didn't obstruct Xie Lian's desire either, and only accompanied him on the trip, protecting him the whole way, even with a plan to break away already prepared. Only, there was always something that dragged Xie Lian deeper into the heart of the affair. I should be thanking you instead, Xie Lian said. You've figured everything out? Hua Cheng asked. Xie Lian nodded. Pretty much. In fact, I should have figured it out a long time ago, but he really is incredible. I'd often think too much too, dismissing my own suspicions, and always end up overlooking the most straightforward possibilities. After a pause, he continued. And that person really gave you a lot of face to peacefully send me away. He put in considerable effort and wasted much time detouring. Your Highness, Hua Cheng said. This whole thing ends here. It's over. Xie Lian sighed. I also wish that's the case. But he might have crossed the line. After some silence, Hua Cheng said gently. But you've come back and there's no way for you to return to the demon lair. Let them take care of their own affairs now. Don't be so sure, Xie Lian said. Hearing this, Hua Cheng froze. I suddenly thought of an idea just now. I've a way to connect with Lord Windmaster, Xie Lian said. He raised his hands and started forming a hand seal. So, sorry, San Lang, but I have to go back for a bit. Seeing that hand seal, Hua Cheng instantly understood. Clearly he hadn't expected this move and his eyes widened. Gurgur, Xie Lian enunciated. Soul-shifting spell. After closing his eyes, that familiar weightless sensation invaded. Like his soul was pulled out and whipped into the air before plunging. And when he opened his eyes again, what was before him wasn't Hua Cheng's face but an endless black night and mountainous woods speedily backing away on either sides. Xie Lian could also hear harsh breathing coming from his own mouth and violent heartbeats. Success. The soul-shifting spell wasn't used often and burns an abundance of spiritual power. It was stronger than spiritual communication and also more wicked and rare, so spiritual barriers generally wouldn't include that spell in its blockage. That day, he and Shi Qingshan had used the soul-shifting spell, and since then Shi Qingshan hadn't yet had time to seal his spiritual consciousness before he lost his powers and turned into a mortal. This was like the two had exchanged the keys to each other's house and made use of each other's home. After switching back, Shi Qingshan should have immediately changed the locks on his doors so Xie Lian wouldn't be able to re-enter, but he didn't. So, Xie Lian could still use the key from before and open Shi Qingshan's door. Only, Shi Qingshan could no longer open Xie Lian's door. Thus the two were now using the same body, and Xie Lian's body should have gone limp and collapsed. Maybe Hua Cheng caught him? Shi Qingshan was breathless as he ran, terrified, as if something was chasing him and he was fleeing. Xie Lian listened intently, and against the wind, a series of howls and wails came from behind. It was that band of insane crazies that were locked up at the iron prison. They seemed to really like Shi Qingshan, or rather, it should be described as yearning for. They pursued relentlessly with their eyes rolled back and their tongues out, and Shi Qingshan's ribs and lungs were burning, wanting to cry but no tears, wanting to scream but no voice. Xie Lian could sense the way he ran was without method, and if it continued, he wouldn't last long, so he took over the control of the body directly. Lord Wind Master. He was using Shi Qingshan's mouth to speak, and Shi Qingshan was so surprised he almost bit his tongue. "Who? Who's in my body? My lord, calm down," Xie Lian said. "I've come back to find you using the soul-shifting spell. Give me the body, I'll help you run." Xie Lian felt the corners of Shi Qingshan's eyes stream 2 lines of hot tears. "Your Highness, what a comfort. You're so reliable. Thank you." "No need for thanks," Xie Lian said. "Listen to me, Lord Wind Master, run away." Am I not running right now?" Shi Qingshan exclaimed. "I don't mean like this," Xie Lian explained. "I meant, you need to escape." Just as he spoke, several insane, filthy maniacs jumped out from the woods next to them and lunged at Shi Qingshan all at once. Xie Lian cracked his knuckles and he leapt, giving them 30 rounds of power kicks, knocking those lunatics onto the ground unable to rise. Shi Qingshan was shocked with eyes wide. "Did I do that? That's amazing. Martial gods are so awesome. I want to be a martial god too, now." Xie Lian, however, killed his joy earnestly. "My lord, you can't. Your body isn't cut out for becoming a martial god." The two conversed using the same body, as if it was one person asking and answering their own questions, and from another's perspective, it was truly bizarre. "Lord Wind Master, where's Lord Water Master?" Xie Lian asked. Shi Qingshan scanned around and said, "I don't know where both Ming Shang and my brother went. Earlier when I opened the door, I found I was still at the Nether Water Manor, and I was only sent to a different chamber. I don't know where things went wrong." Suddenly, Xie Lian tipped his foot and leapt up, flying into a tree. Shi Qingshan didn't understand why, but having his body lift and move so freely was a curious feeling. So he allowed Xie Lian to control his body as he will, lightly and skillfully climbing atop a tree branch. "Your Highness, why did you so suddenly?" Before he finished his sentence, Xie Lian covered his mouth. Actually, it was also his own mouth. Xie Lian quickly climbed to the tip of the branch and sat, hiding within dense leaves. Soon after, a slender shadow stumbled into view at the end of the road. Looking closely, it was Ming Yi. His face still looked ashen, adding an air of gloom to his handsomeness, but he could still somewhat walk. Shi Qingshan was overjoyed and dropped his hands ready to call out to him when Xie Lian raised his hands again and covered his mouth. This time he used both hands, smothering so firmly he could hardly breathe. Shi Qingshan wasn't someone rash, and knew that Xie Lian must have acted for a reason, so he stopped struggling. He watched as Ming Yi walked past them down that little path before Xie Lian loosened his hand slightly and stealthily slipped off the tree, sneaking through the thick woods. Having dashed for a while, Shi Qingshan looked back around and whispered, "Your Highness, why didn't you let me call out to Ming Shang earlier?" Xie Lian didn't respond, but his body suddenly froze. Shi Qingshan turned his head back again and his pupils violently shrank. Ming Yi, who had clearly been long gone, was standing right in front of him. Or rather, them. Ming Yi seemed to be supporting himself up with an arm on a tree, and he frowned. "Why are you here too?" Shi Qingshan blurted. Xie Lian didn't say a word but moved a hand behind his back and waved, gesturing for him to absolutely not give away that there's a third person present. Shi Qingshan understood, but Ming Yi's brows seemed to knit tighter. "What's your hand doing behind your back? Are you hiding something?" Shi Qingshan immediately flipped open both hands to show him. No. Xie Lian could feel that his own blood run cold and his knees go weak. It seemed, although Ming Yi was also very dependable in Shi Qingshan's mind, this sudden appearance also gave him quite the fright. Ming Yi looked bewildered. "I didn't mean for you to actually show me." Although his expression was one of disgust, it was nevertheless something familiar, so Shi Qingshan sighed a breath of relief. The goosebumps popped up on half his body, slowly fading away. While Xie Lian was hugely anxious, he didn't dare to speak rashly right this moment. "Where's Lord Water Master?" Ming Yi asked. "You haven't seen my brother either?" Shi Qingshan asked. "I'm almost looking for him everywhere. Didn't you say you can send us out of the Black Water Island? How come His Highness went back but we're still here?" Xie Lian listened and grew even more apprehensive, although he did his best to suppress the ha that had no doubt appear when Shi Qingshan was overly nervous, but to speak so calmly wasn't like Shi Qingshan either. Thus, he pulled at his hair wildly and pointed at Ming Yi, yelling, "Ming Shang, didn't I tell you to practice more when you've got the time? You didn't draw wrong cause you're rusty, did you?" Although slightly exaggerated, but it was pretty effective. Sure enough, Ming Yi didn't notice anything amiss and his face dropped. "Get lost. Draw it yourself if you've got the skills." Although that's what he said, still he walked over. Shi Qingshan was still frozen on the spot, so Xie Lian quickly moved for him, grabbing Ming Yi's shoulders. "Ming Shang, how's your injuries? The poison isn't manifesting further, is it?" Ming Yi shook his head. "It's fine. Let's find Lord Water Master first." Shi Qingshan nodded and the two slowly made way. Xie Lian couldn't find any chance to warn him, feeling more distressed and uptight with each step. Suddenly, he felt his mouth open slightly, and it was Shi Qingshan who was soundlessly moving his lips. Xie Lian immediately became spirited and carefully discerned the shapes he was forming. He had said, "Just what exactly is going on?" Xie Lian was afraid Ming Yi, who was so close by, would notice, so he lowered his head slightly and responded with simply lip movement to, "He's fake." The moment the words left his lips, Xie Lian could feel a thin layer of goosebumps popping on his arms. Shi Qingshan's eyes bulged and asked with his lips, "Fake? Then who is he?" Xie Lian gave his answer wordlessly. He said, "The Reverend of Empty Words." Shi Qingshan sucked in a breath and Ming Yi's voice came from overhead. "What is it?" Shi Qingshan sucked that breath in all the way, then exhaled, his voice trembling. "I'm scared." After a moment of silence, Ming Yi said, "It's too early to be scared now." If this was before, then his words would no doubt be interpreted as a twisted form of comfort. However, right now it reeked of an unspeakable chill, like it was some sort of threat. Shi Qingshan lowered his head and lipped to Xie Lian. "No way. The Reverend of Empty Words can't shape-shift." Truthfully, when the words left Xie Lian's mouth, he also felt Reverend of Empty Words wasn't quite appropriate. Rather, it was too disrespectful, too impertinent. A few days ago, the Reverend of Empty Words Shi Qingshan bumped into was no more than a minion or a pathetic clone, or some leftover crumbs. Thus, he gave a second answer. Black water ghost son. Shi Qingshan tripped. What's with you now? Ming Yi demanded. Shi Qingshan's teeth were chattering. I want to die. Ming Yi responded coldly. Dream on? That again. That same frosty tone of voice with those equally icy, cruel words. It was no different than before, yet now they took on a completely different meaning. However, this was far from over. Xie Lian soundlessly gave a third name. He's on. Shi Qingshan seemed to not be able to take any more. His heart was beating like drums, and Xie Lian noticed too. Coincidentally, they were just crossing a small creek and making the decision on the spot. He said, Ming Shang, I think you best rest a bit before we continue our search. What time do we have to rest right now? Ming Yi said, You're poisoned. The more you move, the more the poison will fester, Xie Lian said. And even if you won't rest, a mortal like myself gotta rest. Sit down, I'll go get you some water. Thus, keeping his hands and feet steady without revealing any shivers, he made Ming Yi sit down on the grass, and he himself went by the creek, borrowing the sounds of the current to speak with a low voice. Shi Qingshan cupped a palm full of water and splashed it on his own face, calming down. Then he whispered, Your Highness, what are you saying? Just who is the person behind me? Did one of the three shapeshift into Ming Shang? Or did they all possess Ming Shang? Lord Wind Master, calm down. Xie Lian said, It's not them, it's him. The one that's next to you right now is only one person. From the very beginning it had always been the one person. No one shapeshifted. No one was possessed. Shi Qingshan mumbled, But Ming Shang, he. Don't call him Ming Shang anymore. The real Ming Shang is already dead. Xie Lian said. Shi Qingshan exclaimed, How do you know? Did you see? I wasn't the only one who saw, Xie Lian said. You saw it too. The real Lord Earth Master was that skeleton worshipped inside the Nether Water Manor. Why did you think he couldn't control the Earth Master Crescent Moon Shovelwell? Because that didn't belong to him in the first place. The one behind you, several hundreds of years ago, his original name was Hezon. He cultivated into a supreme and changed his name to Black Water Ghost Son. He devoured the Reverend of Empty Words and sent that creature to find you. He imprisoned and murdered the real Earth Master, and took on his name, assuming his position in the heavens. Just as the words left his lips, his entire person suddenly froze. A hand had slapped onto his shoulder without warning. MXTX Author's Notes. So Blackwater had actually already shown up, and he's been hanging around before everyone's eyes. The Windmaster had never met the real Ming Yi. The one before him had always been the one person, and it's the same for all of you too. Certified #1 best actor of this book. I've held this back for so long, now I feel great. Please don't spoil this for others who haven't read it yet. Don't hint at it or spoil this in the forums. It really affects the reading experience. It won't be fun then. Don't spoil. Don't spoil. Important things must be said 3 times. Translator's notes. 7th day. It's a common belief that spirits of the dead returns home on the 7th day of death. End chapter.